Can you hear me now? Hey, what's happening? um, we're like 1 minute early, so I'm not going to get started just quite yet. But we're going to talk about what it takes to score 170. And well, hey, it's 4 o'clock. Let's do it. This is going to be a little bit different than how our classes usually run here at LSAT Demon. I have 1, 2, 3 different co-hosts today. Lily is here from LSAT Demon, Eric is here from LSAT Demon, and Abigail is here from LSAT Demon. The 4 of us have all scored 170 on an official LSAT. And so we all have things to say about what it takes to score 170. And I did it the longest ago. So maybe I'll go last and we will let them speak first for once. I should announce right now that there's a chat on the side over there. Abigail and Eric especially are going to keep an eye on that. They're here to be background for all of my free classes, but they're also going to have to speak about how to score 170 since they've both done it. They're keeping an eye, though, on that chat. And if you want to ask questions in the background, you can direct private messages toward them. I'll kind of host the show, so maybe don't try to talk to me directly. And Lily, I'm going to put you on the spot first, since you're the one who scored 170 something most recently. Lily, what did it take for you to score 170?
Oh man, I'd say a lot of hours of really hard work. That's like the most important thing I can tell people is that while it does come naturally to some folks, the test, like they'll, get a score in the 160s is diagnostic. That was not my story. I got a 144 diagnostic, and it was really an uphill climb for me in every section. My worst section, though, was logic games. So right off the bat, I decided to dedicate, I would say a lot of 8-hour days whenever I could. When I had totally like free days, I would just dedicate them to studying the LSAT and to the Demon. And that helped me improve my score a lot in a pretty short amount of time. But man, when I go back and look at my my drilling stats and my time for every single one, I think it's something like 250, 300 hours before I took my first official exam. So.
And you went from 144 to
174. So I had a 30-point jump.
Okay, a 30-point jump over, again, how long of a time frame?
Yeah, I started studying in December of 2021. I took my first official exam in June. I got a 171. I knew that I had some more points on the table, so I ended up taking the exam again 2 more times, actually. Took it in August, got another 171, and I was like, man, I'm going to take it again, because I've heard Ben and Nathan say, like, you keep going until you get your highest practice test scores officially. So I did. I took it in September, got the 174. I had my apps ready to go, so I submitted that day. And 6 days later, I've already been accepted to a top 14 school. So crazy.
Don't go. Stay with us, please. All right, cool. So hard work, number 1. Is there a number 2 from you, Lily?
This is more of a tip, I would say, for your actual studying. But Nathan, I've told you this before, but I had a motto. STFD stands for slow the fuck down. Do it on every section. If you think you are going slow enough, you're probably not. You're probably missing things. You're probably skimming things that you shouldn't be. Every single word matters. Slow down, understand what you read, and you're going to get better.
Yeah. I mean, and you can kind of nest that under the hard work idea anyway, right? Like Lily's talking about hard work every day for a long period of time in order to make, a crazy 30-point improvement on the LSAT, which is amazing. So she's talking about hard work over time, but on one individual question, when she says slow the fuck down, a lot of that is work harder on it. Don't just glaze over it. Don't skim it. Don't guess. Don't dive into the answer choices and just like try to find the best one, even though you're not really sure why. She's talking about actually understanding it, like taking the time to work hard enough on it in the moment. Would you agree, Lily?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't move on from a question until you know you've gotten it. And maybe you see the right answer on your first read through and you know that it's good, or maybe you have to spend the time to eliminate 4 wrong answers to know that you found the right one. And, you know, do what you have to do.
Yeah, force yourself to get it right. Stop.
Yeah.
That sounds like overly simplistic, but it's not. You need to force yourself to get these questions right. You have to take the time to solve them instead of just like, 50-50. Like you don't get into the 170s with a lot of 50-50. You know that the right answers are right. And you get there by hard work. Cool. All right. So we'll come back and we'll kind of roundtable this. But Eric, I think you were the second most recent. So why don't you talk about what it takes to score 170?
Yeah, I love the idea of hard work per question, like hard work in the moment. I think a lot about honesty and confidence. And by honesty, I mean honestly being honest with yourself in the moment on whether or not you understand something. And I think I kind of share some of Ben Olson's problem of like feeling the need to equate a lot of what we do to like physical exercise and physical training.
Yeah.
But I've been running a lot recently. And for those of you who run or really do any kind of physical exercise, you know the sort of mind games you play with yourself in the moment to like let yourself off the hook to not go a little bit harder. Like this morning, I ran 8 miles. I knew the plan was to run 8 miles. And at the end of 7 miles, I didn't want to run that 8th mile.
Yeah.
And no one else in the park knew that my plan was to run 8 miles. And I could have just come to a stop and be really demonstrative about how hard it was that I ran 7 miles and how happy and that I was that I got through that much. But I would have known that I didn't run the 8th mile. I think similar moments of honesty happen on the LSAT when you read a sentence and you don't understand it. And you might think to yourself, well, I probably understood it. That's probably good enough for me for today. But if you're honest with yourself, you catch yourself and you say, no, I know I have to run that 8th mile. No, I know I have to figure out what it actually meant. And that's just like basically, and you know why you don't want to do it because it's hard. But if you are honest with yourself and realize that, no, it's going to take a little more work on this question, then you stop yourself and you go back and you get it right. And how that leads to confidence is because if I know that I was honest with myself about the stuff I didn't understand, then I get to be confident about the stuff that I know I do understand. So when I know that a right answer choice is right, I don't have to say, well, I should think about this some more. I should look at those other ones. It's like, no, I stopped myself when I didn't understand before. So now that I know, yeah, I'm good. I can select this and move on and not waste time wondering whether I should look at the other answer choices again.
So put it in a nutshell. What's the thing? What's the short answer to the question? What it takes to score 170?
The short answer is honesty about what you don't understand and confidence in what you do.
1A, honesty, 1B, confidence, which comes from that honesty of the experience of actually solving questions. You crack the code on that question and you feel the click. You feel the puzzle piece going in and you, oh, yep, that's the spot for it. You can feel it click. And if you're not feeling that click, then I think Eric would say, if you're trying to claim that you understand it or you're ready to move on and do another question, try another test and I got it. Well, really explain the click to me. Like how did just explain, why did you miss that question? That wrong answer. Why is it 100% wrong? That right answer. Why is it 100% right? Explain it to me. And it shouldn't take like a whole lot of work for it to make sense, right? Once you finally feel that click.
No, you shouldn't have to do work to make, and that's something I tell tutoring students a lot, is like, if they're spending a lot of time on a wrong answer and thinking, well, maybe if I think about it in this different way, it might be closer to being right. You shouldn't have to do work to make the right answer right.
Yeah. Once you understand it, you should be able to explain why it's right in relatively few words. It should just be like, oh, well, I mean, yeah, that has to be the answer because this. Not, well, if we assume X, Y, and Z, then this answer becomes really powerful, so that's why it's good. It's not about that. It's like, no, it's already right on its face.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you understand it, it can take a lot of work though to get to that understanding. So if you're being honest with yourself, then you're going to have to put in that work to get to that understanding. But if you do it on enough questions, then you start to do it on all questions, just all novel questions, because you're used to that process of inquiry. Like you're used to actually figuring it out. Well, then, okay, if you can figure it out in review, then now all you got to do is just start figuring it out during the actual test itself. Abigail. Oh, wait. And Eric, say one more time, like where you started, where you finished.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. My diagnostic was a 162 or 163, I forget. And after, I don't know, a few months of study, I was at I scored a 175 on my second attempt.
Perfect. All right. Abigail, your LSAT journey, and what did it take you to score 170?
So I agree with everything Lily and Eric have said so far. I think I would add, like, besides hard work, also consistency is key. So I was working a full-time job at the same time when I was studying, but I made sure that I found at least time to do a little bit of LSAT work every single day, even if it was only drilling a few questions on my phone when I had a few minutes to spare. But I think doing something every single day and finding time to review is what allowed me to improve my score. And I would say, sort of related to what Eric was talking about in the honesty, I would get angry when I missed a question. Like I would not make excuses for myself. Like it's fairly easy to say, oh, I just misread that one word. It was worded in a confusing way. I understand it though, and then just move on. Like I would really want to stick with that question and figure out, like, why did I misread it? How am I going to stop myself from doing this next time? And I think just really getting mad when you get a question wrong and figuring out how you're not going to let yourself do that again is how you eventually stop making mistakes.
It's a version of the honesty that Eric's talking about. It's an intellectual honesty where you get angry. You just start to expect to get them right. How do you start to expect to get them right? Well, you get the easy ones right. You start getting the easy ones right. We have a new class coming up at LSAT Demon for the live subscribers, Fantastic 5. And it's for like beginners, and it's, hey, get the first 5 in a row right every single time. So at the very basic levels, you just have to start. Because I mean, 170 scorers, well, they got the first 5 right. They also got the first, 15 or 20 right, but they got the first 5 right. So even if you're at 120 something, okay, you're not getting the first 5 right, and you need to start getting the first 5 right. So let's get them right. They're easy. You can solve them, take your time with them, solve them, figure them out. And if you miss them every once in a while, that's okay, but you should get pissed and thoroughly review that question until you really feel the click so that you understand it. Otherwise, you're going to just continue making that same mistake next time. So yeah, people who have a little bit of ego are good at the LSAT because you just like, I'm not going to settle for wrong answers. And if I miss something, then I'm going to be relentless in trying to understand it. Because the test does actually make perfect sense. So there's questions that people like, they don't like those questions, but they still make perfect sense. The questions aren't wrong. There's a reason why the right answer is right. There's a reason why the wrong answers are wrong. So instead of getting mad at questions, you should, like Abigail, get mad at yourself. Wait a second, what am I missing here? And then once you solve it, you won't be mad about the question anymore. You'll be like, oh, I see. Okay, here's what that meant, and that's why that's clearly correct. Yeah, okay, got it. Excellent. Okay, so I'll go last. I scored 179 way back in 2007. I don't remember taking a cold diagnostic, but there's no way I was scoring in the 170s because I did not have perfect logic games. So to add to everything that Lily and Eric and Abigail have already said, the one thing that was keeping me from a perfect score was my games sucked. And so I had to, I'm not the hardest worker in the world, but I did have to do a bit of hard work, like Lily was recommending. And I had to be honest with myself, like, hey, this is your big weakness in the test. And I had to grind on it a little bit every day, consistently, like Abigail was suggesting. And so all I did with games was I just did a lot of games. Fortunately, we have 100 practice tests to play with. And there's 4 games on every practice test. So we have 400 of these games to work on. So I did like one timed section of games every day, maybe a second section if I had enough time and energy to do it. And I went from like 2 games in 35 minutes, like maybe two perfect games in 35 minutes. And over the course of 6 or 8 weeks of doing, a section a day, maybe a little more than that, eventually it clicked. And I started getting perfect sections. And when I started getting perfect sections, then like I was immediately scoring in the 170s because I was like pretty strong to begin with in the other 2 sections. We at LSAT Demon believe that if you're not scoring perfect on the logic games, it's just because you haven't yet put in the work. We really do believe that everyone can score perfect on the logic games section. There's not any debating the right answers. They're 100% right, and the wrong answers are 100% wrong. And they give you all the information that you need to solve the question perfectly. We can teach you how to do it. You can learn how to do it. And so all of you, if you're already perfect on the games, high five. If you're not perfect on the games, then you need to do the work every day, probably, to unlock the games. You just got to do game after game after game. If you did one section a day, it would take you about 3 months to do all of the games. If you did one game a day, it would take you, a little over a year. But depending on your level and depending on how bad you want it, if you want a 170 something LSAT, then you need to perfect your logic games, and you can get there over time. It's the easiest section on which to improve. It's the section that most people suck at when they start. I did. It's the section that if you're going to completely crash and burn, like get 2 right, in 35 minutes, you are more likely to do that on the games than on any other section, but you're also more likely to score perfect on the games than any other section because it's just so learnable. Let's take some questions. Yeah, I see that Eric and Abigail are already answering questions in the chat, but I would love to know what you guys are thinking. So why don't you just raise your hands and I will call on you. Savannah.
What advice do you have for someone like me? I've been studying for a couple months now, and I had a 10-point increase. So I'm in like the high 150s now, but I'm having a lot of trouble breaking into the 160s. And I drill every day and I do time sections, and I'm trying to figure out how to break into that.
Where are you missing? Where are you losing your points?
Majority is in reading comp and LR, but reading comp is really weird because I'll either get -6 or like -13, like no in between. It's either like one extreme or the other. LR, I could definitely do a lot more drilling, and logic games, I'm like not near perfect yet, but I'm getting there.
Okay, so you've got work to do in all 3 sections of the test. The way you break into the 130s, 140s, 150s, 160s, or 170s is you do one question at a time, Savannah. Like the points that you're missing on the reading comp, you got to figure out why individually. Why did you miss this one question? Same on logical reasoning. There's not like a magic tip that is, special advice to get into the 160s. It's just show me your mistakes. We got to clean up your mistakes. And that's what we're about at LSAT Demon, is just one question at a time. Like we got to solve it. We can help you solve it, but you have to ultimately be able to solve those. You have to solve more questions correctly to get in the 160s. Right? So when you miss questions, then you've got to investigate those questions to get the clicks so that you can make progress. Does that make sense, Savannah?
Yeah, it does. And I do the blind review. And I always understand the question after I read the explanation. And if I don't, then I use the ask button. So I'm just hoping that finally it'll click.
How long have you been at it?
With LSAT Demon for about a month now, but I did another test prep that literally did not help at all. But it taught me just kind of like the foundation of like what the test is about. But in terms
you might want to forget all that stuff. But how much have you improved since you've been with the Demon?
10 points
in a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly,
give it another month. You're on the right track. It's perfect. Okay. You're doing great.
It was kind of less than a month. I took a week off because I had COVID.
Okay, so 10 points in less than a month means keep doing what you're doing, Savannah.
Okay.
And, like it says a lot that you're here asking questions. That's what you should be doing. You should be at classes asking individual LSAT questions, or you should be hammering on the ask button, asking individual LSAT questions, or figuring it out yourself with our videos and explanations. Awesome. Let's do Jag, then Connor.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask, I know you said you did one section of logic games like every single day.
Yeah, something like that.
So my weakest section is reading comp, and I do study for it like most every day and attend every like live class that there is for reading comp. I was wondering, would you suggest doing like one section of reading comp every day and see if that like will help improve my score, or would that be too much?
Too much? I mean, it's 35 minutes plus however long it takes to review. Can you find an hour in your day?
Yeah. No, I was just wondering, like, would that be too much emphasis just on reading comp then, or?
Well, if you're not perfect on the other sections, then you should always be spending some time on those sections.
Okay.
Throughout the week. The thing I always say is you should do at least one timed section of each type every week. So 1 games, 1 reading comp, 1 LR, and then do more of the stuff that you're bad at.
Okay.
But make sure you're doing one of each. And as always, make sure that you're thoroughly reviewing every mistake before moving on to do some new section or new material.
Mm-hmm.
Put the review first is what I'm saying. As you see, unfortunately, you can't literally put the review first because you have to miss questions before you can review. But the missed questions are where you're really going to make a difference to your score. So you want to do a time section, and then you want to just hammer on every single one of those mistakes, get pissed about it. And that's got to be your priority, not new material.
Got it. Okay.
Do new material when you're out of stuff to review. Okay, let's try Connor and then Armin.
Hi, I'm seeing in the chat a bunch of people are kind of talking about a score drop. So I took the August LSAT, and I got my score back, and then I signed up for the Demon immediately after because it just wasn't like where I was practice testing at. And I was going through, like, because I'm taking it in a week, and I'm just wondering how much, like, because I'm kind of afraid of that same thing happening, because I was practice testing at around, like strict, at around like a score that I was okay with. And then on test day, it just completely dropped. And I feel like now, I mean, I don't know if it was this way when I was studying on my own, but like I'm going through my like month, and it's like, I feel like I'm putting a lot of time in, and I just don't know if I should be, like, what I should do in this situation. Like with a week left, putting a lot of time in, I want to do everything I can. I just don't want that same thing to happen where, it went down 5-6 points.
Okay. You can't control it. There is randomness. You got to stop being so bound on any one data point. The data points are going to fly all over the place. It's like a cloud of data points. Some of them are higher, some of them are lower. You can't control it, nor can you control your official LSAT, because it's just one more data point. So you've got to let go of the idea that you can like avoid a decline on this next official test. No, you have a range of scores. You're going to score something within your range of scores. Your goal as an LSAT student is to improve your range, not to eliminate every bad score, but to improve your range. So over the next week, you should be thoroughly reviewing every mistake you make. And when you take the official test, you need to let go of the idea that you're going to get any one particular score. You have to play your game. You have to solve as many questions as you can solve correctly. And that's going to lead to your best chance at the highest score. But there's still going to be like this noise in the data. And fortunately for you, Connor, law schools only care about your highest score. So bad scores really don't count. I mean, only the highest one that you ever get is eventually going to count. Lily, Eric, Abigail, did any of you have drops as you were prepping? And do you have any extra thoughts about the drops?
Well, I can just quickly say that I had a terrible day. This my second official LSAT. I just was super anxious. I struggle with anxiety, and so I don't know. My brain was just not working that day. I thought I had scored way below my range, and so I say this to say that Nathan's right. Once you have a range, you're gonna score somewhere in there. So I walked out of that test thinking I had dropped like 15 points. Turned out my bell curve, my range had increased enough that on my worst day, I got a 171. So I think part of it is like going into the test when you're at the range of scores where you'd be happy with any of them, so that even if you're like totally off, it's not going to be a devastating moment. But that's just my experience. Eric, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I can say that I'd been practice testing for a while before my first official attempt. Been practice testing between like 174 and 180. And there were some technical issues, but really what it came down to on test day was, I got nervous. I let myself get flustered on a game. And I, in my experience talking with students, there's natural score variance, but for any like drop in score that's like way more than what you're used to, like outside of what you might consider your variance, although it's arguable you even know what that is, it's probably because you did something differently on the day. And even if you weren't aware of it, but like on the day of my test, I did something different in that I got to the fourth game and I just like forgot my training, and I let myself get flustered by this hybrid game and was trying to think about lots of rules at once. And I let my mind get clouded, and I didn't I didn't do what we do on the games, which is just think about one thing at a time and make it simple when you build your worlds. So my approach changed. And I think that is also, I've talked to people and been like, well, on the official test, you never focus on the time, but on the official test, you started thinking about how you need to get a 170, but you're through 10 questions and you think you might have already gotten 2 of them wrong, which means you only get to make one more mistake over the last 15 questions. And all of a sudden you're doing something that you never did in your practice tests, thinking about that. And I think that's why you score lower, is because you're doing it differently.
Yeah, you might just be worrying more on your official test than you are on your practice test. Something as simple as that could be interfering with your performance. All right, let's move along. Armin, or is it Armin?
It's Armin.
Armin, hi.
Yeah. So my main question was sort of answered with what Eric said. It was mainly how to like keep calm during the test.
Yeah. Lily, Abigail, want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, I would just say mindfulness, right? So practice it in your practice test. So as soon as you feel your mind start to wander while you're doing a PT, bring your mind back to, I just have to do this question. I just have to understand what this sentence is saying. And if that's too much, you just have to understand what that word is, right? Like, what is the first word of this sentence? You get that, then move on to the next one. And that will really help, I think, when you're focusing on all these big ideas, like how many points you can miss or questions you can drop. That's what's going to get you. So just as often as you need to, center yourself on that question, on what you're reading in that moment.
Yeah, the point is not to stop the random thoughts. You will get carried away. The point is to recognize when you're getting carried away and then gently come back to, as Lily said, one word at a time. I mean, a sentence is made up of words. Okay, let's get through the first word and the second word and take it one bite at a time and make sure that we're understanding. And like, that's your work. Now, you will have that voice again start yelling at you about like, oh my God, this test is so important. And you already missed that previous question. So, you're screwed already. And okay, yep, I see. Yep, You just notice it. And then you go, yeah, but I have this question I need to answer. So see ya. And you just go back to one word at a time. And you have to repeatedly do that. If you don't already have some sort of a mindfulness practice, I think that it can help a lot, especially for people who have any kind of test anxiety. 10 minutes a day of, I've been doing the Calm app again recently, and I really like it. But there's all kinds of different mindfulness sorts of things that you can do. Let's go Shay and then Ashley.
Hi, Nathan.
Hi.
So I'm testing in the mid 160s, and I've been studying 20 hours a week for like 3 months now.
Okay.
And I'm sort of at this point, and I'm noticing that on the practice test, because I take one every other weekend, I'm missing a lot more 3s, like level 3 questions, than I am 5 questions or even 4 questions.
Why do you think that is?
It's probably a speed issue. So I try to slow down, like, especially in the first like 20 questions or whatever of a section, but I'd still get the same result. My question to you is like, do you think I should switch over to private tutoring at this point if I'm testing in February?
No.
Okay.
I mean, tutoring is always available. And if you feel like you really want one-on-one attention with somebody, then you can sign up with, Lily or Eric or Abigail or whoever you like in the Demon. But I would never suggest that as an alternative to just regular Demon subscriptions. I mean, you're not the only 160 scorer in class, right? You're certainly not the only 160 scorer who's drilling and doing time sections and time tests in the Demon and using our written explanations. The value proposition of a subscription to the Demon versus paying one-on-one tutoring is just vastly more expensive. So if you have resources to burn, that's a place to burn them. But I think if you are going to do tutoring, you should continue doing the Demon stuff anyway, because it's like a fraction of the cost and
Right.
90% of the value.
I just wanted to know that it's like possible to get past a plateau like this, or if it's like you've seen it all the time where it's like, yeah, people put in like so much time for like 3 months and it's like, yeah, you can still like do higher.
We have multiple teachers on staff who took the LSAT 5 times.
Okay.
There's no shame in hard work over a long period of time.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
it's not uncommon. Ashley and then Kyla.
Hi, thanks so much for hosting this. I have 2 questions, if that's okay. My first question is, when should I start those like last 10 prep tests, like, you know, the last 10, like go to the 80s? Like I've been trying to save them right before I take the November test, but I do want to know them like front to back. So like when should I start those?
Yeah, at LSAT Demon, we actually blend some of them into your normal prep. So we have the tests divided 1/3 for drilling, 1/3 for timed sections and timed practice tests, and 1/3 for classes. And there are it's like 1/3 of the tests in the 80s are in each of those segments. There's really no reason to be so precious about protecting tests so that you can have perfect future diagnostics. I find actually no value in that. If you were prepping for a limited period of time, you should start with the 90s and work your way back into the 80s and then into the 70s. If you're potentially going to be around for months, which you don't really know when you start, I think that it's probably optimal to just do a blend. But anyway, Ashley, if you've got all 10 of the most recent 10 tests still sitting there untouched, it's time to do some of those. Yeah, you want to start working through those tests. They're not really very different. The new test and the old tests are almost identical as far as the content of the questions. And the more prep you do, the more you'll actually start to see that. There's kind of nothing new under the sun on the LSAT. But yeah, just go ahead and dive in. Gemma in the chat says, what does drilling mean? That's been mentioned multiple times. Drilling is the heart of the Demon. Drilling is a self-study tool where you do one question at a time and the Demon notes your progress. It feeds you questions that are at a just right level of difficulty for you. So it takes all the thought out of it from your part, and you don't have to decide what to do. You just click drill, and the Demon gives you a question that's a good challenge for you. It's like a auto leveling system in a video game or a board game or something. If you go drill in the Demon, you're playing against the Demon at a level of difficulty that is an appropriate level of challenge for you. And then when you miss questions, we have written explanations, video explanations, and an ask button where you can ask for help. And that's all built right into the LSAT Demon. You guys can all do it because you guys all have at least a free subscription. So you can drill in the Demon. You should check it out. Go, if you have that, you all have that free subscription at least, please click around, like check out all the cool shit that's in there. There's all kinds of stuff that you have access to, even as a free subscriber. And we want you to take full advantage of all those resources. Kyla and then Josh.
Hi. So I am at like the beginning of studying for the LSAT. I basically just took my diagnostic and then I've been just doing a little bit of reading, but I want to know where do you recommend I start? Because a lot of I listen to your podcast every once in a while, and it feels like every place I go, it's like, okay, you're already 3 months in and this is what you should be doing. So I have a little over a year. So I have a lot of time, and I'm just wondering where I should start. Like what places do you recommend that?
Yeah, I'm sure Abigail is frantically digging up a link called "Where Do I Start?" It's really just any one question, Kyla, and that's true every day of your LSAT prep. I don't care if it's the first day or the 101st day or the 1001st day of your LSAT prep. You just do a real LSAT question and you try to solve it. You force yourself to get it right. And when you miss them, you get pissed off about it, and then you review your mistakes. There's no reason to study theory. We have all the theory. I mean, we understand all of the theory, but we don't start students on theory. We start students on practice. We do questions, and we try to figure them out ourselves, because ultimately that's what you have to do, is figure them out yourself. So you're going to try to figure it out yourself. No shame in missing it. But when you do miss it, well, we got to get you to that click. So yeah, just dive right in. That's the demon drilling is built around that. You click drill, you start looking at it at a real LSAT question, and you just try to figure it out.
And then I have one more question. What do I do when you talk about the logic games a lot? The logic games was my best section by 4 points. So what do you recommend I start at? Because that's my best one. So should I work on reading comprehension and logic reasoning, or
all of them? I mean, you're not perfect in any section, right?
Yeah. No.
Okay. So start with all of your mistakes. Like, you've probably got questions that you already missed that you did not properly review.
Yes.
That's where you start. All of those.
Thank
Then
you.
you do new stuff.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's part of being honest with yourself right there. You know, it's like, oh boy, I missed all these questions. And then it just kind of like, it's human nature. We avoid, we try not to think about our weaknesses. So we kind of sweep that stuff under the rug naturally sometimes. And your LSAT teachers are not going to allow you to do that. We're going to immediately say, yeah, okay, so let's see the questions you're missing. Can we look at the questions you're missing, please? Because that's really where all of the learning is going to happen. Josh, and then Enoch.
Hi, Nathan. So I actually just joined LSAT Demon about like a week ago, and I just had like 2 questions, I guess. They're kind of related, but the first one is through the drilling, I've noticed that I am getting most of, actually all of the logic games correct. Like, I do see like the score getting higher. Like, I'm around at the 70 mark, which isn't bad, but I was just a little confused because I know, like, I saw what the scores meant, and it said if you finished a certain level of question at a reasonable time. Like, I get all the questions right. Like, I've done 1 through 5, like difficulty, and I get them all right, but I'm kind of averaging, like, timing wise, like 12 minutes, 11 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah. So you're not going to be at perfect, because you'd have to do, you have to average a little under 9 minutes a game in order to finish a section in 35 minutes. So if it's taking you 11, 12 minutes to do those games, it's great that you're getting them right, but you will eventually have to, like, you're hitting singles right now, Josh, and you need to hit like triples and home runs.
So is it just like, you think just keep practicing, trying to, like, I see your explanation videos afterwards and I try to redo, I mean, it's only been a week, but I try to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's a lot faster.
Yeah. And experiment with doing the same game different ways. Like watch 30 seconds of a video and then work on it on your own. Watch 30 seconds of another video and work on it on your own, maybe in a different way. If you're not already making worlds, you need to learn how to make worlds in logic games. I never would have scored 170 anything if I would not have started doing worlds on games. Even if you are already making worlds, but you're not fast enough, then I would strongly recommend that you experiment with doing different worlds on the exact same game. So redo the game multiple times, but like have your first step be different and see how that affects your eventual final solution to the game.
Okay. And then the second one is towards reading comprehension mostly. I'm just realizing when I read through it, like I try to understand sentence by sentence, because that's what like, what it's about. But I don't know, I feel like I'm losing stamina. Like, I get slower, and I do get them right, but again, it's like 12 minutes, so it's just like practicing more.
Yeah, I mean, stamina issues are almost exclusively complained of by people who just kind of struggle with the content. Like they're just, it's taxing, Josh, because you're not understanding it. Right. And then you're not understanding it because it's taxing. So you need, it's like, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing. It's, or a reinforcing kind of a mistake. So I would recommend that you just take probably more time on the passages themselves, make sure that you're really comprehending the passage. You got to remember that the passages are the answer key for questions 1 through 27 on the reading comprehension. I mean, if you're missing questions on reading comp, or if it's taking you forever to answer those questions on reading comp, it's probably because you just didn't comprehend in the first place. Okay. You got to get to where the wrong answers just look like trash. That's how you'll know that you're getting there on reading comp, where you're just like, what? It didn't say anything close to that. You like dismiss wrong answers after 3 words because you just don't have any time for them. That's where we're going if you're going to ever get like good and fast at reading comp. It's because you dominate the passage so hard that then the wrong answers like just don't take any time to dismiss. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Most students do the exact opposite of that. And in fact, some prep companies train you to do the opposite of that. They tell you that you should be, you know, looking to eliminate 2 or 3 answers and then compare the remaining answers. I don't know if any of you have ever heard that terrible tip before, but anything like that, it's just a gimmick that you'll never hear us talk about at LSAT Demon. We are all about, nope, there's 1 right answer and there's 4 wrong answers, and you should expect answers to be wrong, not right. So narrowing it down to 2 or 3 is actually bad in our world. You should be narrowing it down to 1, not endlessly, you know, comparing 2 wrong answers, which is a result of not understanding the passage well enough in the first place. All right, Enoch, and then Ashley.
All right, so for about a month or 2, I have been stuck in the late 50s for logical reasoning when it comes to the analytics, the LSAT demon analytics.
Okay.
I am doing extremely well on level 3 questions, and it's very hard for me to see the move into the level 4s and level 5s. And I want to ask this question: how much attention do we have to give to the analytics? Because sometimes it can actually get you stuck for a very, very long time, even though you would want to get to other levels, but it is not really allowing you to get into those levels. So how much attention do we have to
None.
Pay
I wouldn't pay any attention to those analytics beyond like, okay, what am I the worst at? Maybe I should spend more time on that. I don't, those analytics, look at them and go, okay, here's where I'm at. You know, maybe I'm making progress. You might be able to get some motivation out of the analytics, or it can just tell you where you should be spending more time. In fact, I think that's where we're going on Demon 3.0. There's going to be a drilling feature where it's just like, hey, based on our analytics of logical reasoning and games and reading comp, here's how you need to spend your time. Like you click drill and don't pick the section, in other words. And that would be even better. But, you know, so Enoch, spend more time on the sections that you're the worst at, and then don't think about the analytics beyond that. Just review your mistakes. Ashley has had a hand up for a while.
Hi again. I forgot my question the first time, but I wanted your opinion about this like strategy that I'm considering for test day, like going through doing maybe like for a logical reasoning section, going through and maybe doing like half of it or 3/4 of it, and then going back to check my work and then finishing like the last set of questions just to make
God,
sure
no.
that I'm not okay.
God, no. We see, because here's the thing, Ashley, that's an excellent question. We want you to solve the questions before moving on, one question at a time. We don't want you to go back ever and check your work. You don't have time essentially to go back and check your work. It's terrible when people finish early and then miss a bunch of questions. You know, they finish early, they go back and they try to review their work, but all you're telling me is that you're doing sloppy work in the first place. So I love the idea, Ashley, that you're thinking about doing fewer questions, maybe. It's totally fine and expected that you'll run out of time at the end of the section. Notice that none of us said anything, right? You asked, how do we score 170s? Not one of us said, finish the sections. Not one of us said, check your work. Not one of us said manage your time. That's not what we do. Truly excellent LSAT students solve one question at a time before they move on to the next one. And if you run out of time and have to guess on a few at the end, that's totally fine. You just have to make sure that you're getting paid for each one as you do it. So finish your work, like don't do part of it like, oh, I'm going to come back to that. Instead, just get as close as you're going to get to the correct answer. And we understand that you're still going to miss some of them some of the time, but feel like you're finding that click, get as close as you're going to get to the right answer, pick an answer, and then forget about it and move on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's a great question. Andrew and then Yana.
What's up, Nathan?
Hey.
I've actually watched on your podcast before back in mid-August, I think. It was about I was using 7 Sage. I was spinning my wheels. I wasn't making much progress. And so I ended up signing up for Demon Basic. I've been doing it for about 5 weeks. And in that time, I've taken 5 practice tests. I got a 158 on the June 2007 diagnostic. And since then, I haven't really made a ton of progress. And I'm not sure
how long?
if I should. So I've been studying Demon for about 5 weeks, but I've been studying 7, well, it's kind of half-assed.
5 weeks with the Demon and you're not feeling like you're making progress.
So I made a little progress. I got a 160 today on my test, 74.
Okay.
Good in reading comp, good in LR.
Okay.
Crappy on the games. I see a lot of stuff online where it's like, oh, the games are the easiest section to improve. And I'm a bit discouraged because I feel like I've been doing a lot of games and I haven't been getting better.
How many games would you say you've done total?
Close to the 3-figure range, maybe 80. I couldn't tell you.
So you've done 20%, I would say, of the work. Mm-hmm. That's a good start.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but you have competitors that are outworking you.
Mm-hmm. So
like they're either doing more per day or they're doing it for longer. So if you want faster results, then you probably have to do more of the work, either increase the volume or increase the length of time. But I think you might be getting discouraged for no reason, Andrew. Like if you've improved by a few points in a month, that's great. Give it a few more months. I mean, every point on the LSAT is worth like $10,000 worth of law school scholarships.
I got it. So just hunker down, keep doing games, keep doing everything else. And
I mean, especially if games is your worst section. There's a lot of bad advice out there, but if you're reading that games is the easiest section to improve on, that's good advice. That piece is actually true.
I'm like -5 in reading comp, I got -5 on the LR games. And everyone's like, that's the best position to be in.
I agree.
So it's just keep grinding, keep working, and God forbid I'm not improving, then I'll come back to this in a couple months, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it took Lily 4 months to improve by 30 points, she said. So, maybe you're not improving quite at her pace, but hardly people, that's kind of rare to improve by 30 damn points. Yeah. And you don't even have that much to go. Like your diagnostic in the mid 150s, that's an excellent diagnostic. So you should be able to get to the 170s, but it is going to take you perfect games. So you've done, you got a good start on it, but there's a lot more work to be done. Yana or Jana?
Jana, hi Nathan.
Jana, hi.
So I just have a question about how I stop second guessing myself. In any case where I get an answer wrong, and it was one where I second guessed myself, my original answer is always right. I'm just struggling with building the confidence to be like, I know I'm right. I just need to go with my answer.
Yeah. So I think, and you might have to meditate on this for a little while, Jana, in order to fully accept it. But my hypothesis is that you're seeing a little bit of selection bias. What I mean by that is when you go review your mistakes, it's human nature to review, and it's actually smart strategy. You review your mistakes. Well, when you review your mistakes, you're going to find some where you changed your mind from the wrong answer to the right, or from the right answer to the wrong answer. Yeah. but you're not reviewing, or at least you're not paying nearly as much attention to the ones where you changed your mind from a wrong answer to a right answer. Only broken down cars come to the garage, or only cars that need work go to the garage. Well, yeah, because selection bias, right? So when you look at missed questions, and you think, oh, I always change my mind from the right answer to a wrong answer, I need to just trust my gut more. No, that's not your problem. Your problem is not that you trusted your gut, or that you failed to trust your gut. Your problem is that you failed to solve that question. You were kind of half guessing. It was clear that you hadn't felt the click, because if you had felt the click, then you would not have picked a wrong answer while simultaneously also failing to pick the right answer, right? It takes 2 mistakes to miss a question. So rather than be like, oh, I changed my mind, I always do that, I should just trust myself more, that's not the solution. The solution is work harder to make sure that you're picking the right answer. And frequently that does involve thinking that one of the answers is correct, but then changing your mind to a different answer. I'm never going to say, don't change. Again, none of us, the 4 who have scored 170s, none of us said, trust your gut, go with your first instinct. Like that's just not part of LSAT prep. Cool. Lily, Eric, Abigail, anything else that you want to talk about? I have to go at the top of the hour because Abigail and I are working on my normal Friday night LSAT class. It's a 2-hour all levels class for LSAT Demon Live subscribers. I know I will see some of you there. What did I miss? Last words on how to score 170.
There was a good question in the chat about like, at what point should you give up on a question if it's taking you a long time and you just can't figure out an answer? And I would say if you're investing any time into a question, then you need to stick with it until you figure out an answer. And you may not get to the right answer by understanding exactly why the right answer is right. Sometimes you don't love the right answer, but you should still be able to get it right by eliminating the 4 wrong answers. So just remember that there's always 2 ways you can get to the right answer. And like Nathan said, it takes 2 mistakes to get an answer wrong. So just don't allow yourself to make both of those mistakes.
Yeah, I love it. And, just time-wise, a missed question is the world's worst waste of time. So if you've already spent 3 minutes on a question and you're like freaking out, oh, I've spent too much time. Well, yeah, but are you going to get it right? Because if you get it right, it's fine. If you miss it, that's the disaster. So instead of like, well, I got to guess and move on. No, you don't. You might be 15 seconds away from solving it. So the sunk cost of the 3 minutes that you've already spent, that's invested in you finding a solution. That's good. Like that actually means that you should spend more time on it until you feel the click, right? Otherwise, if you just, oh, well, I'll guess at this point. Okay, well, now you wasted all that investment because now you're just like guessing at random. Even if you narrow it down to 2, it's still just a 50-50. That's not very good. Random guessing 1 out of 5 is 20%, right? You're going to get 1 out of 5 right. That's not that bad. If you narrowed it down to 2, but you still haven't solved it, you've only increased your expected value from 0.2 to 0.5. And you could increase your expected value from 0.5 to 1.0 potentially by taking another 30 seconds and conclusively ruling out that wrong answer. So you should actually be willing to invest more time on the questions that you've already gotten, some clarity on. Okay, I'm going to go. Eric and maybe Lily are going to hang out and answer questions or talk to you guys more. Abigail and I are going to leave to go run my normal Friday night class. See some of you guys over there on that side. Thanks for coming. What's the next one, by the way? What are we doing 2 weeks from now?
Well, I will say we have one like kind of additional pop-up, which is the pre-test pump-up if you're taking the October exam. I'm going to be co-hosting it with Eric and Francesca and Brandon. It's open to all Demon students from free to live. So really, we're just going to be talking about how to get your mindset right before you sit for the official test. So I'd love to have you there. And that'll be Wednesday, October 12th from 6 to 7 Eastern.
Okay, and I'm sure you'll put a link and all that. All right, I'm gonna go. See you guys next time. Bye.
All right, I got a DM with a question asking, when taking a time section, do we suggest going back and completing the questions that weren't finished, or just review the questions that you did complete? So I assume this means you took a time section, you only had the time to get till like 15 of them. Do you go ahead and just review the ones you did, or should you finish the ones that you didn't? Yeah, I think the questions that you didn't get to are still good practice questions that you haven't solved yet. So you should do that. I mean, that should be, I think, a part of your review, along with reviewing the ones you got wrong. Yeah, as Abigail linked in the notes, the next one of these free sessions in 2 weeks is how to afford law school applications. I'll tell you what, I didn't play the game of like trying to track down as many fee waivers as I could have, and I just paid my credit card bill for September today. And oh man, something to be aware of if you're going to follow our advice and apply broadly to many schools. I applied to 16 schools, and it's a lot. I did get fee waivers from some of them, not from all of them.
Did you, Eric, did you ask for those, or were they just like given to you in LSAC?
There were some that there was like one or two that I was aware of just from like stuff on the internet that certain schools were just like granting every, yeah. I think like Northwestern this year was just like granting every single fee waiver request. So I requested that. I had one or two because I started the process of applying last year and then delayed. I had some fee waiver offers, like a fee waiver offer from Michigan, which like those don't carry over year to year. So I contacted them and said, hey, you gave me this fee waiver last year. Do you mind reapplying that? And they granted that. And then otherwise there were schools that just don't charge a fee anymore besides the $45 fee that like LSAC always charges.
Yeah.
How about
yeah,
you?
no,
Were you more insistent? Did you pursue more of those fee waivers?
Well, part of it was that I was forced to hold my apps until I got my September score. So I had my applications just sitting there, and I think I ended up getting, I want to say 9 fee waivers just over the course of having my applications like up in LSAC. But then I also reached out to a few schools. So I also did Northwestern. At kind of the beginning of September, I reached out to UVA. I just emailed them and said, hey, like I'm applying. I'm really interested in your school. You know, this is very expensive endeavor. Here are my stats. Is there any way you want to give me a fee waiver? And they did. So that is a possibility too, is to email the admissions office, obviously be, you know, very kind, very straight to the point, give your stats, all of those things. But yeah, so part of it's the waiting game, I think, and you don't necessarily want to wait. You kind of want to get those apps in. So you have to think about that, but there are some things you can do.
Yeah. You said you already got into a school. Which school did you get into, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, not at all. I submitted all my apps on September 28th, and then I got contacted to interview with UVA on October 5th, and I interviewed yesterday and got the call yesterday afternoon. So in at UVA, yeah. Which is a good start to the cycle. So
awesome. Congrats. Well done, Lily. Well done.
Thanks,
so
Eric.
You got a phone call.
I did. I got the phone call. I was like, how excited do I be on the call? Like, it didn't matter, but I was like, I want to be excited enough that they're excited, but like not so excited that I freak them out. So sure. Something to think about, I guess, if you're a phone call, but most don't call, which may be good. Yeah.
All right, Chad, you got a question for us?
Yes, thank you. I have a question for you. You said that you began the application process last year. Is that right?
Well, I began my studies last year thinking that I was going to apply. So, I mean, I started I created my LSAC account, and I had my transcripts. I had the transcript dealt with and signed up for the, what do they call it? The candidate referral service, which is how I started getting all the spam back in the day. So yeah, I started studying in, I want to say July of 2020. Wait, when was it? Anyway, July of 2020. No, this is 2022. July of 2021 is when I started studying, thinking that I would apply during that cycle for admission to begin school this year. Just because I was going to be taking the LSAT in October or November, decided I would delay so that I didn't put pressure on myself. So made the difference between, because I didn't score my best, my first one basically was the difference between me applying in like November, December with a 170 versus applying September with a 175 this year. So I think that's a good difference, well worth waiting a year.
So you did take the LSAT and you just wanted to give yourself more time to take it again to get a better score?
Yeah, I had planned for the October test, which was already meant I wasn't going to be able to. I was basically relying on scoring well in October in order to apply by the end of the year. And then when I realized it's probably better to take the pressure off and just plan on applying next year, meant I just went ahead and registered for the November test as well. I think before I even sat for the October test, just planning on taking it again if I needed to. And that's what ended up happening. I took it 2 times, and then I got to just deal with all the other application stuff when I was not studying for the LSAT, which was very nice.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that.
Sure. Got a direct message question here asking about what our study schedules were like. Yeah, Lily, do you want to talk? What was your study schedule like that allowed you to go up by 30 points in 4 months? I'm interested to hear that as well.
I think Nathan might have been a little shortening of my timeline. So I started studying in December of 2021, and I took the June test. So I guess that is 6 months. Yeah. So, and I took a kind of a month off at the end for finals week. So I guess it is about 5-ish months. I would say that for me, what I did was, since I started studying over Christmas break, I treated it like a full-time job. I just decided, like, I'm going to spend 8 to 10 hours a day really on logic games because that was my weakest section. And so I did so many games. And I don't really recommend that because I think it could have so easily burned me out. I'm really lucky that it didn't. But I would say my biggest tips are, I'm a huge fan of time sections. I think they're awesome because not only are you learning how to not be afraid of the clock, but you're getting such a wide mix of question difficulty, of question type. So I like to do at least 1 time section a day when I was studying, but only do that if you are going to put the time in to actually review all of your mistakes. And if you're not, then drill until you have time to review. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, there's no way I could have survived that kind of anything close to a full-time study schedule. I was working full-time when I studied, and I just started waking up an hour earlier every morning to ensure that I had an hour before work to study. And then if I was feeling good, I would do some more in the evening after work as well. But I had a pretty good sense for, and then I would so I would do an hour, maybe 2 every weekday. And then I would typically do a practice test, a full practice test every weekend. But, I had a pretty good sense for when I was getting tired in my studies and just knew that I was reaching diminishing returns if I was drilling stuff for past the 2-hour mark. I just knew that I could feel myself getting sloppy, and I'd rather just say, okay, no, it's good. I accomplished something. I'm going to stop it there and not reinforce bad habits, rather than be tired and sloppy on my drilling. So yeah, I would say an hour or 2 every day, usually several time time sections throughout the week, a full practice test most weekends is how I approached it. Robert in chat said that a lot of schools offer free webinars where they'll give you application waivers. Yeah, that's sort of like the online version of the various school fairs that happen. You walk up to the desk and they'll give you. I never attended any of those. That's definitely a good call, Robert. We'll be sure to discuss that in the free session in 2 weeks. If you go to their special events, they might hook you up with a fee waiver. Lucy asked both of us, when we review a question we got wrong, do you recommend writing out your understanding, or do you just make sure you understand in your mind? What do you think, Lily? Did you make any notes of your mistakes? Did you keep a journal or anything?
No, I didn't. I've heard this idea before. Personally, I don't see the use. Either you get the question right and you move on, or you get it wrong and you read the explanation and you watch the videos and you hit the ask button if you still don't understand. But I don't see the value in like writing it out and coming back to it. I think you should just do more questions and you'll take what you learn from what you've missed. I mean, personally, I'm not into the writing out thing. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I didn't take any notes or write anything down. Let's see, question here. Did you blind review after every single time section or PT? Yeah, there's different, like, I feel like people have different definitions of what blind review means. So maybe it's useful to just, like, I don't know, independent of whatever that means, just talk about how we reviewed. So Lily, what was your, maybe you're typing right now, what was your approach when you say you finished a time section and there were 6 questions that you got wrong? How would you approach your review of that section?
I would probably say it depends on the section. So if we're talking about games, that didn't happen as much later on, but I think I would have just redone all of the games where I missed a question and just seen what can I learn? How did I mess this up? What split was I wrong? What inference did I miss? Things like that. With reading comp, generally, if it was one question I missed, I wouldn't reread the entire passage. I would just like think about that question and the written explanation and see if I could understand why I was wrong. But then with logical reasoning, I would redo the question. I would reread the passage, going through, okay, what is the flaw? Is this valid? What are the premises? What's the conclusion? Make a prediction. So I would do all of that again. So what about you?
Yeah, I wouldn't sweat the ones that I got right all that much. I've heard of people who want to go back and like redo all of the questions that they already knew they got right. Ain't nobody got time for that. There's thousands of these questions. We can just move on to just focus on the ones that you got wrong. Yeah, the ones that got flagged as wrong, I would try to get them right before looking at the answer. And then if that still didn't work, make sure once I saw what the answer was to work out my understanding of it before moving on to the next one. And that could be by checking in on the video explanations and the written explanations as well, that were in the daemon. But yeah, and then I think, like you said, on the games, if there was one question that I got wrong on one of the games, I think by looking at that question, you can determine, did I get this wrong because I misread this question, or I rushed, or was it just a mistake on this question? Or did I actually read this correctly? I just was unprepared to answer it correctly because I screwed up my worlds in some way. And if that was the case, then yeah, redo the game for sure.
Yeah, let me say, I definitely did not review questions that I got right unless I had like flagged them as being very difficult for me. And then I wanted to go back and see why it was hard for me. Yeah. But I did not review like the right questions hardly ever.
For sure. Another DM question I got, do we supplement with any external sources like the Loophole book or PowerScore Bible or anything like that? Did you have any like side help besides the daemon?
Well, I'm currently training a student on how to unlearn one of those companies' tips and tricks, quote unquote. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, I did not. I was only ever with the demon. All of my progress was with the demon and the demon alone. Look, I think that Ben and Nathan, their strategies and their ideas are really the way to go. If you want to check out other things, go ahead. Be careful though that you don't end up falling into some gimmicks and ways of looking at the test that are actually going to hurt you. I just heard a story about someone got a 154 diagnostic, was with a company, ended up scoring a 140 on the next test that she took because the theory and all the things they were teaching was so confusing that she lost 14 points. So
yeah, that's more than random variance, that one, unfortunately. Yeah, similarly, I started with some of the resources you mentioned. I think I started with a different online prep company, was there very briefly. I had bought a couple other books and I just never looked at them again once I started with the demon. Because honestly, yeah, I mean, I realized just having access to the questions and to individual explanations was the main thing. What subscription? I got kind of sneaky with my, you could say that the LSAT demon paid me to study for the LSAT, which is not maybe going to be, because very shortly after I think I started with a premium subscription, and very shortly after I started, I heard the guys call for help for like video and audio editing for the podcast, which like that is my current / former career. So I reached out to help, and I've been editing the podcast for quite a while, including back when I was studying. So they automatically hooked me up with a live account because I mean, I needed like access to everything to do my work. So yeah, I will say for me, I had access to the live classes. I very rarely attended them. I think this is something that your mileage may vary, like what you find to be the most helpful for you. I know that live classes are really helpful for a lot of people. I just knew that I was fortunate to start from a really strong place in my study. And I realized that what was my best use of my time was just to keep drilling and doing time sections and reviewing them myself. I didn't need everything that the live classes had to offer. So yeah, I had access to live, but I didn't really go to too many live classes. What about you, Lily?
I upgraded and downgraded depending on the month and just like how many classes I could attend. But once my scores were pretty strong, I would look at all of the classes for the day and do all of the questions that were in the syllabus. And if I got them all right, then I was like, well, I don't probably need to go to that class. And if I missed some or I struggled, then I would go to that class. And you'll also find teachers that you click with more, all of those good things. I think I went to almost all of Nathan's classes just because I was like, I really needed to learn how to be disrespectful of the test. And I felt like he was the one who could give me that the most. So depends on your preferences, things like that. But going back to that supplement question that we got, I think you should be self-studying and supplementing with the live classes, not using the demon and then supplementing with other companies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well said, for sure. Someone asking about the demon's always hiring. I think primarily hiring for like teacher roles and people who can help out with like answering ask button questions and stuff like that. I don't know of any openings beyond that. You can always just email Nate and like make a proposal. If you see something that you think we could be doing that we're not, shoot Nate and Ben an email and make your pitch. I mean, that's sort of, I guess they were asking for podcast help specifically when I shot them an email, but yeah. Is it worth going through theory lessons if you already know the basics? Lily, what are your thoughts on theory?
I wouldn't look at our lessons until you get an answer wrong. And then if you got it wrong because you could have understood more about, well, what's the difference between a necessary assumption question and a sufficient assumption question? At that point, I would try to figure out what that means and what that is. But I would not overload yourself with learning every question type and word strength and all of these things until you're just answering questions and hit that point where you're like, oh, at this point now, it would be helpful to know. So you will naturally accumulate understanding. But I would say that there was a lot of things that I understood intuitively that I didn't know the theory on. And I didn't learn that theory until I actually started working for the Demon. So just by doing questions, you're going to pick up on a lot of it naturally. But like I said, if you're like really struggling with necessary assumption, and maybe it's because you're treating it like sufficient assumption, yeah, you should figure that out, right? Like know the difference. So what do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I would treat them as a resource and not as a syllabus. Yeah, I wouldn't plan on going through all of them just because they're there. But if there's stuff that you want to read about, to like make sure you brush up on not confusing sufficient for necessary, that sort of thing, then go to them kind of as needed. But they're never going to be as important as just doing one more question. Should we should we time ourselves when we drill or take our time? Yeah, I think drilling is a perfect opportunity to really not care about the clock. I think time sections, we say, all right, time sections, don't forget the clock, turn off the clock. But, even then you still got the like little bar that shows you the progress, and you're looking up and you're saying, oh, I've got about half of my time left. And you're inevitable, like, I don't know. I inevitably always had like 1% of my brain that was thinking at my best, like could never still like fully forget about the clock, because come on, we're humans. Drilling is, really your excuse to just take exactly as long as you need and not care about the clock at all. At least that's how I think.
Yeah, and the Demon will take note of your time. So if you do a game, like you'll see at the end of the game how long it took you. So you don't need to like track that yourself. And I would say to only give that a cursory glance, right? So if a game took you 35 minutes, just one game, okay, you probably had some issues completing that game. But if you're just doing games, I would not worry about 5 minutes versus 7 versus 9. Every single game is going to take a different amount of time. You cannot come up with some formula like I need to get done with game 1 in 3 minutes so that I have 6 for game 2 and 12 for game 3. Like, it's not how it works. Sometimes the hardest game in a section is game 2. If you're freaking out about having to go faster on game 2, well, that could be the hardest one, and you could have plenty of time for games 3 and 4. So just give a reading comp passage all the time it needs, and then move on.
I'm trying to remember, isn't the Elle Woods game a game 2? I'm trying to remember.
It might be. What's funny though is I don't think I ever found that one that hard. But then there were ones that I did find hard that other people seem to not have issue with. So It really all comes down to like your brain and what makes sense to you.
For sure. Yeah. I think Shay earlier had asked about like, I'm finding that I'm getting more level 3s wrong now. And I just like, I think you should be like basically feel equally about getting a level 3 wrong as getting a level 5 wrong. Like it's still the same problem, right? You didn't understand something and you've got to learn to understand it, like no matter how hard or difficult it was. Also, just I think like you said, our brains work differently. There was I filled in for Matt on games mastery, I think was today. And we did a full, it's like test 87, I think, full section of games, each of which is rated at a level 3, but they like feel vastly different in their difficulty. And I think it's just, I don't know, the like difficulty ratings to me, I wouldn't put much stock in them.
Yeah, every single question is just worth 1 point. Doesn't matter if it's a level 5 or level 1. So it just really doesn't matter. Just get it right. And if you get it wrong, figure out why. Don't care about the rating.
For sure. when I do time sections, I don't rush myself to avoid getting nervous about time, and I end up running out of time. Should I read faster? No, I don't think, I'll answer this and see what you think, Lily. I don't think it's a matter of reading faster. I think time, you make up time not in reading through the passage, but in answering the question by solving the question so that you can dismiss the wrong answers quickly. I think speed really is a result of understanding it so well and having such a good prediction that you just don't have to respect the wrong answer choices at all. Anything else on that, Lily?
No, I was just gonna say you're 100% right, Eric. You make up all of your time because you understood what you read so well that you fly through the questions, whether it's any of the 3 sections. But I'll also say another reason not to read quickly, aside from all of the reasons, is that I had like 3 different ask button questions about the same reading comp question this last week. And every single person was like, this question is asking me what the author thinks. The author never says what they think. This is like a terrible question. And I copy the sentence that they're talking about and I say, hey, did you notice the first word of the sentence? And that first word is unfortunately, comma, blah, blah, blah. And that one word is telling you exactly what the author thinks, but everyone was skipping over it in their mind. They were just going past that clause, missing that word, and it was the key. So when I said earlier, every single word matters, like literally every word matters. So why would you want to read faster and miss things that are going to give you answers?
Yeah, well said. Lily, by the way, has been like the like star of the Ask Button team in recent days. I am also on the Ask Button team, but I am far less reliable in taking part, just based on also having to edit the podcasts and tutoring students and stuff like that. But yeah, Lily crushes it. If you ever, probably any of you here who are with the Demon who have submitted an Ask Button question recently, chances are Lily has. Yeah, we got applause from Savannah there. Lily kills it. Cool. Any other questions for us before we wrap things up? I know there's a bunch still hanging out, but if there's no more questions, then we can probably call it time, and hope to see you in class at some point or in another 2 weeks for the next one of these. Any final thoughts, Lily, on what we've discussed today, or what were we talking about? How to score 170, what it takes to score 170?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that all of us here are rooting for you. And when we give you or tell you things that are hard to hear, we say them from a place of love because we want you to crush it. So, you know, try to take what we say in, even if it hurts a little, because it will be for your good in the long run.
Absolutely. And you are absolutely smart enough for this test. This test is not an enemy. It's not meant to be adversarial. It's not really trying to fool you. It makes sense. And you are totally smart enough to crush it. It just takes some work. Cool. All right, everyone, with that, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks all for the great questions. We'll all be around. You can always find out more by just, I think if you email help@lsatdemon.com, if you have any questions about the platform or our thoughts on the LSAT generally, you can direct them there and we'll get back to you. Otherwise, maybe we'll see you in class at some point. Best of luck with your studies. You got this.